Hi, guys. Welcome back to Freedom Brigade Nation. We have Sarah and Kendra with us again. Hey, ladies, how are you?
Good.
I say you're with us, but you're just on every week, and so I think at some point you're just Freedom Brigade Nation. You're just part of it. So
Works for me.
works for me too. I have to say, Kendra, I was looking at this before. What is going on behind you? Are those Keurig or are those buttons? What is going on over
Oh,
there?
my Challenger coins.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah. So when I was doing all my police advocacy, like this one came from OBN and the Chief of Police of Norman. Of course, I have my silver Trump coin that my husband bought me from anniversary.
Very cool.
Yeah, they're just little, all
So
different Charger coins. So I
I
started
had
collecting them.
I had no idea that you did anything with the police. So
Yeah.
I'm not surprised. You're a woman of many talents. You've lived several lifetimes. I know what that's like, so I'm not surprised. That's pretty awesome. I thought maybe they were like Keurig, like little cups, and I was like, that's
That's
pretty.
interesting. That is what they look like from a distance.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
when that's how I got into politics. When our police department was defunded, 895,000 here in Norman, and that's when I was like, "All right, I'm going to figure out how this works, and I'm joining in." So that's what I did.
Well, that's awesome. We got a badass to join the ranks.
Then the
Uh,
Lord moved me all around, so I didn't.
yeah, and then you were sentenced with me. I'm so sorry, but it's been fun, right? Sarah, what got you involved?
2020, two things. Medical freedom for one of my kids who really needed certain services, and the whole COVID thing messed that all up. And then we are small business owners, and we lost 8 months of contracts in 2 weeks with COVID. And a lot of those we never got back. And we just had to rebuild other work. And so between that, I decided that the government shouldn't have that much say in areas of my life where I'm supposed to be able to work and provide and protect my family.
Well, that's true. That is 2020 is how I met everybody. I was in the freedom fight from 2001, but 2020, everybody woke up. And that's when I decided to jump into the political wing of it. I was just doing a lot of freedom fighting and telling people truth and being called a conspiracy theorist. And then they tried to shut the whole world down and mask kids up and stole an election right in front of us like a bully and said, "What are you going to do about it?" And I was really excited to see a bunch of people at the same time. That's how I met all of my closest friends right now. I met after that point, except there's a few that were before that, but the ones I work with the most, even producer Andrea has become one of my best friends. She's not on camera today. She's not feeling great, but I met her working with frontline doctors for medical freedom. And what we're seeing in the medical freedom is really scary because they're doubling down. I continue to get people they're sending me stories across the country where, much like what we saw in Oklahoma with DHS, with the mother who sought alternative care under the care of a doctor, if you do not follow the state prescribed course of action, they could take your children for that. And that's terrifying. And I'm seeing where they are intervening in hospitals. And we saw that during COVID too. Remdesivir, which was the protocol for COVID. After your second dose of remdesivir, you had a 25% chance of living after that. 25% chance of living after your second dose, and that was the freaking protocol.
Yeah.
And then they were like, COVID's killing people. No, your protocols are killing people. But anyway, as we're seeing that, what scares me is a lot of states have embraced this school-based healthcare. And I know that in the schools, even Oklahoma, who's supposed to be the most conservative state in the nation, is also looking at that. And that is terrifying because with this, it removes the parents. The parents sign a blanket waiver in the beginning of the year. And after that, the most extreme cases of school-based healthcare is that the kids there's no oversight from the parents, and the schools can put out the mandated protocol, which, as we know, with the vaccines and the truth that's been coming out about the vaccines, with the COVID protocols, that perhaps the machine of pharmakia is not always the most trusted source, and maybe shouldn't be the protocol. It should be a choice for each family. And so that's terrifying to me. And I'm seeing the government schools become more and more pushy with what they do. You know, I remember I have a child that one of my children are 26, and when I dropped him off for kindergarten at 5. So this is like 21 years ago. I just aged myself. Some of you, what, Sarah, you were what, like a little kid running around 21 years ago. So I was dropping off my kindergartner and I had a baby in the back, and I kept the baby catty corner behind me in the back seat because he couldn't be in the front seat because safety said I couldn't have him in the front because the airbag could make that unsafe. And so I put him in the back, but I had him catty corners so that when I was driving, if he needed something, I could reach back, you know, and kind of get him his binky or whatever he needed. And the principal told me, well, you need to switch your car seat around because for 1 minute of the day when you're dropping your son off, he has to walk along the front of your car. Now, this was a country out of school. There was no safety. And I just was like, are you seriously telling me what I should do in my personal vehicle with my baby for a minute? Are you serious? And I couldn't believe the audacity. She very quickly learned that I'm not the parent to tell that to. And the office people knew me by first name. I was always very kind and polite to them, but they knew that I was not the parent that was going to just do what they said. But there's been a conditioning for decades now. You just do what the government says. You do what the government schools say. You don't question it. We are the authority. My sister told me at one time that when her children were in elementary school, she had a teacher say to her, no, we know your child better than you because we're with them more waking hours a day than you are. And so my sister's kind of a fighter like I am. I'm surprised that there was not the police called after a statement like that about her child, but she handled it with grace. But regardless, the attitude with the schools is that they know better than the parents. And that attitude is absolutely being given to the children as well. That as they get older, they're more and more empowered to break away from their parents. Even I have one still in high school, and when she does sports and stuff, I really struggle to get them to communicate with me. They want to communicate directly with her and leave me out of it completely. I have to ask her where the schedule is and what's going on, when her practice is. They don't want to deal with the parents at all. And while there's a level of that's responsibility, there's also a level of that you have to deal with the parents. The parents are the authority. And I don't appreciate them making, especially when they say they don't want you to have phones at school when, the parents could reach them, but then they want to communicate directly with your kids. My children get grounded from their phones sometimes. And so her answer to me is, well, my coach has to be able to get a hold of me. You can't take my phone. That pisses me off. You need to be able to contact my child and if you need to do it through me, then you do, but it shouldn't be through an app that I'm not seeing as well. And so there's a lot of that going on, and it's terrifying. So I, as usual, stood on a soapbox and went on and on and on. I want to hear what you guys think. I mean, you sat on a school board and have had kids in public schools, government schools is a much better term, for many years, Kendra. I've done both. This is my 9th year of homeschooling, and I have one that is in public schools that was homeschooled till 5th grade. And then I have 3 other children that were in public schools all the way through. And so I know about both worlds. And I want to hear what both of you. Sarah, you are homeschooling 4 children. Is that correct? And so I've only homeschooled 3 at a time at the most at one time. Right now I'm down to 2 at a time. But I want to hear from you guys too. Like, what are the dangers of homeschool, of the government schools it's amazing to me. I had a lady reach out to me upset that her 10-year-old was getting sex education in the schools at 10. And she said, and the school told me that they didn't need my permission to do it. That pisses me off. My 10-year-old, her innocence has been preserved, and we are way off from that conversation because she's 10. And there is something to be said for innocence. Why is that not what's being protected? Go ahead, guys. I'll keep going if you let me.
Well, like you, I've had kids in public school. The first one was born in 1992, so he went to pre-K in 1996, and it has changed a lot even from when they were little. But the biggest thing I would like to impress on adults with children right now is that your kid's school is not the school you went to. It was totally different when we were kids. We didn't know who our teachers were married to, how many kids they had, where they lived, what kind of car they drove. We didn't know any of that stuff. They came and gave us the education that they were paid to give us. And all those lines have been blurred over time, especially starting with around 1999, I guess probably coincidentally with the beginning of the internet. And those lines became very, very blurred to the point now where we're telling kids that school is their family. And when you go into the sexual abuse cases, which we would just touch on for a second, but if you're telling them it's their family and you're giving them X-rated school books by authors who've won nonsensical awards that don't mean diddly, how safe is your kid to sit on the lap of their family member at school and read a dirty book? And then we wonder why sexual abuse is increasing, right? So it's changed a whole lot. But I feel like there's an unintentional movement to separate parents from kids that is orchestrated by the enemy. And also the big thing for me in Norman Public Schools was my children were handed a laptop, a Chromebook.
Yes. Yeah.
It was right before a couple of years before COVID. And they brought it home and told me about their new email address. Well, the next day I called the school and said, I would like access to this email address you've given my sixth grader. And they said, no, you can't have it. If you want it, you can get it from your sixth grader. And I said, no, you're going to give me access to their email. And they said, not one parent has asked for that in a school district as big as Norman. Not one parent has asked for that, so you're not going to get that. And that's when shortly after that, we put our kids in a private Christian school. That was kind of one of the final things. So what that school email gives your kids access to is Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok, Facebook, without your knowledge while they're on school property. They may have the laptop blocked, but they'll just use their friends' phones or whatever's available to them. So all of your parental control went out the window with the email address on an electronic device.
And I have an issue with the Chromebooks as well because I am a responsible parent that does not believe the government should be in charge of my children. I have parental controls, right? So at any time I can see what's on your screen. I can decide what apps are and aren't allowed. By the way, TikTok and Snapchat are not allowed. And then I can also decide not only the content, I can decide the length of different content. I can just block it if she's grounded. But so then they give her an electronic device without any of those parental controls. And so that caused an issue in my home. We settled on, you are not allowed on your Chromebook unless it is in a living space everyone can be in.
Yes.
And your back can't be to the wall because you shouldn't be doing anything you're not supposed to. And people are like, well, what about privacy? Look, kids are not adults, and that has been another lie that has been perpetrated by the government. Children need parents parenting them when they are paying for their own phone bill, and even if they get a job as a teenager, when you are paying for your own life. I will encourage you and respect you and expect you to have privacy. I'll respect that. I mean, I knock before I walk in her bedroom because that's respect and privacy, but at the same time, kids are not adults. I had my second son that's 26. That was it really cracked me up one time. I was like, this is not a democracy. He was a teenager. He was mad. I'm like, this is not a democracy. This is a monarchy. I am the queen. This is my house. We are when you were older. And he said, this is not a monarchy. This is a dictatorship. I'm like,
that's good too.
I'm like, that's because I'm the parent. I love you. I want what's best for you. And you are not old enough to make these decisions yet. As you get older, I will remove reins and let you have more of these things so that when I have to release you into this world, into the wild, you are a respectable citizen that knows right from wrong. But I will have protected your innocence and protected who you are and given you right from wrong. And people are always like, well, you don't let your children, you've got them in a bubble. Exactly. I have a 10-year-old and a 7-year-old that are more immature than many children because their innocence has been protected. You should protect it. I am very concerned for this next generation. You mentioned the books. They are seeing these books and hearing these things that they should not even know exist. And they are going to have, they're just having it taken away at a young age. When a child is molested, it follows them all their life and they have issues. We've got a whole generation of kids that are being mentally molested. That's terrifying. What's going to happen? And so we need to be careful with what we allow. Don't worry about people that bully you, that say, well, how dare you keep them in a box? No, no, no. When they're old enough to handle the craziness of the real world, they will be able to do it because I gave them a strong foundation and protected their innocence in the years that that was important. And so we need to get back to that. And we need to, it goes back to the critical thinking and thinking beyond the narrative of, well, this is what they said. I don't care what they said. What's best for your kids is what's important.
Well, quite frankly, I'm a grown woman, and what I saw in the books this weekend, I don't ever want to see. It has not enhanced my life in any way. Animals portraying sex acts, I definitely don't need to see that. That did not help me in my educational journey at all.
Well, I got to tell you, even in middle school, I did not know what a freaking blowjob was. I was great with that. You don't need to know what that is in middle school. You know what I'm saying?
No,
Like, now maybe
you
I
don't.
was more naive than most. I had no idea that anybody did any of that stuff. When I first found out about it, I was like late teens and I was horrified, right? I was like, that's so gross. People should not know about that. They portray that stuff to kids. Guys,
Yeah.
that's still a level of innocence that should be shocking and should fire up every adult and every parent.
Yeah.
So, okay, Sarah, what I'd like to hear from you, because you have chosen to protect your children's innocence,
Yeah.
and I enjoy being around your kids. They're just a delight. But you also you hold at least 2 full-time jobs on top of that.
Yeah.
And so, how are you the executive director? Which that is a really weird title to give her. She is the executive director for the state Republican Party, but I can tell you, she does
So much
more.
more. Yeah.
She
So much.
is she's the glue for the Republican Party, right? She is amazing. And then you also own and run a business with your husband.
Yeah.
And so, and that requires you to travel all over the place. And so then somehow you just find time to keep house and homeschool 4 kids. So for somebody that would say, you know, I know the government schools are bad. I don't know. I can't homeschool. I don't have time. I can't figure that out. Tell me what you would say to them and how you do it.
Yeah. I think the biggest reason I homeschool, although there are many, is that I was homeschooled and I saw my parents do it in the 90s when the environment was much less friendly to this, when there was not resources like we have today. And the thing is, it gave me and my siblings like such a love for learning, such an interest in new things that and the ability to say, hey, I want to learn something, I'm going to go learn it. Nobody has to tell me or guide me. There is Amazon and YouTube, and I can go buy a book and I can learn it. And what I learned is like homeschooling it when I was growing up with my mom was not some perfect little box. It was a family growing up together, doing all the things. You know, you had people practicing violin in the basement and piano on the main floor, and then more violin on the top floor. And like you just had all kinds of things. And that was something we as children did on our own. And it was because we weren't forced into some system. We were given a home that was full of just fun ways to learn. We read books. I remember my brother, he had a favorite type of horse every single day. One day he liked Arabians, the next day he liked a different kind, and he could tell you why. The next week it was Civil War generals, and he just studied these things. And he was just in his room reading books. Nobody told him to. And so I learned that if you can create an atmosphere that loves learning, your kids will go so far. And that's what my parents gave to me. So I think for those afraid of homeschooling, like it doesn't have to look perfect. And my homeschool doesn't always look perfect. But at the same time, if I can teach my kids to love learning and obviously resource them, there's so much curriculum available, free curriculum, curriculum that does it all for you, curriculum where you can invent it yourself, like whatever type of homeschooler you want to be in 2025, you can be that kind of homeschooler. You can do it by video. You can do it by internet. You can do it by books only. You can do it by writing. You can do it by reading. You can, any way you want to learn is available to you today. And find what your kids like and you like. It doesn't have to take 8 hours a day. It's not a classroom. There's only, I've got one kid in 3 different grades, and then my youngest is just kind of starting preschool. And they are each learning different things, and my kids love workbooks. They tell you to hate workbooks. My kids love them. They beg me for them. They beg me for geography worksheets. So that's what I do with them. And they sit there and do it, and they're so proud of themselves. And so my thing is, it doesn't have to look one way. And just because school takes 8 hours a day in a classroom doesn't mean it takes 8 hours a day to assimilate that much. There's no moving of classrooms. Lunch is a 20-minute thing at my house. And all of that adds up to just a learning environment. And then, we travel with our kids. Our kids come on professional work environments. They know how to be around thousands of dollars worth of equipment and not to break anything, because they want to be with dad. And
it's worth pointing out that these are little boys that can be around boys, right? That'd be a little bit like if you're saying, okay, so she's got girls because they can do that. No, these are boys, and they're boisterous boys, but you taught them to behave.
They know their environment and what they are and aren't allowed. And they're not perfect. They're kids, but it's just, I was so blessed to be homeschooled that if I can give that to my kids and they can have even 50% of what I had growing up, it's totally worth it.
Well, producer Andrea says that hers takes, because she's putting notes over here for us, she only spends 2 hours a day homeschooling.
Yeah.
I can tell you, so we've got 2 grades in my hand, and I probably, I could probably come learn watching you, Sarah, because all I knew was government schools growing up. So I actually have a classroom in my house, and I do a lot of book work, and it's classroom style because I don't know another way to teach. And so a lot of times we spend 2 to 3 hours a day. Sometimes it's 4 because we're in 4th grade math, and that's not fun for anybody. I enjoy math, but not for a kid that doesn't like it. So sometimes it's a little bit more, but it's never even close to as long as they're at the school days and they're getting an education. And the boys, my husband has seen several studies that boys do not respond as well to the classroom setting. And so boys actually benefit so well from homeschool because you can actually look at their learning style and teach them as they're moving and growing. And you can, my girls and I, we just finished this book series called Grandma's Attic. Are you familiar with that, Sarah?
Yes.
Oh, we love that, right? And so we just finished the whole series. So today we were looking up the author, Arleta Richardson, and we found out that those were all true stories. I don't know if you knew that, all those people. And so we were looking up the characters and when they died and all the things. We really enjoyed it. And there's like 8 books in that series. And so we really, really enjoyed it. And my girls are never going to read Edgar Allan Poe. Like, that guy is psychotic. The fact that he is in curriculum, he is disturbed. He should have been in a mental institution and should never be presented as any kind of art form. He's somebody that needed help, and you should not put that crap in your brain. And so stuff like that is, you can decide. You can give them wholesome stuff, and not even, even some of the books that I read as a kid, as I look at them now, I'm like, wow, this is showing a child that is very disrespectful, and it's celebrated and tolerated. My girls are not reading this. And so, there's things like that we don't even see. And because we didn't draw the line on those things, it's gone so far to the things that Kendra's talked about that we don't even see the other things anymore. We don't even consider that disrespect and disobedient child is a big deal because we're just glad that it's not pornographic. That's insane, actually. We need to take back our society and take back our children.
Yeah. I want to say, like, one of the things that made a huge impact in my life growing up is that I read biographies. So there was this old series at my public library growing up. We would go to the library during the school day because we were homeschooled, so we could, and they were called Childhood of Famous Americans. And I read probably 20 of them. And then I read YWAM's Heroes of the Faith, and they also have Heroes of History. And I think I read 100 biographies by the time I graduated high school. And And biographies teach you about heroes. They teach you about people who lived normal lives until they decide to stand up for something and how they did that. And when 2020 came around, I saw this in different people, but one was my little sister, and she went to her school board and she talked about masks. And she was like the only person in town who went to that meeting. She went and stood up. And I think that's because if you can teach your kids what heroes are, like doing what's right is actually a life of adventure. And it's really amazing to live that life. It's not easy, but no life is easy. And I think biographies teach that. And I don't think enough kids are reading biographies. And I'm so grateful for how many biographies I was given to read. And that's one of my things is like finding those books now, because anyway, I'm building some book lists because the books I read as a kid, I don't see kids reading today. And I think they make a huge impact on your life. I read books about Lexington and Concord and all these different things, old scholastic books that just impacted me, I think, at a deeper level than you don't think of it in the moment, but I think it's back there and it's impacting who your kids grow up to be if you can set those examples.
That is a great example. I just wrote that down. Biographies and heroes have been replaced with porn.
That's scary. And true. I do want to say, I looked at HSLDA. We had their founder on, which that was such a high honor. And he was talking about Convention of States, but HSLDA, for those of you that are looking to homeschool, I just want to tell you that you should go there and see what the requirements are. So in Oklahoma, I have to teach 180 days, which is not fair because the schools don't teach 180 days, but that's a different story. And so I always keep track that I've got 180 days of what we did each day because that's what Oklahoma requires. Your state requires different things. Some states are much stricter than other states, but I encourage you to go and make sure if you pull your kids out to homeschool, you do that. If you don't think you have the education to do it, which by the way, the parents are always the best educators, but if it gets into something you don't know, there are online curriculums, many of them are free, where you can just say, hey, here's your curriculum. Acellus is one, K-12 is one, those are both free. There are several curriculums you can use for free. I have settled on the Good and the Beautiful. They have workbooks. I don't like a lot of screen time, and so it has minimal screen time. But I have also, Abeka is a very good work, and they have switched on Schoolhouse. Abeka is it's a harder curriculum to teach, so you probably should do that if you have the time to do it. That one, it's a rigorous curriculum, but it is amazing, and the kids learn a lot. We did Alpha Omega. Those are life packs. They're very self-taught. They need minimal help with that. And so you can decide what style fits you and your child best. And there are many things to look at and consider, but it is something you can absolutely do, and you can do it having a full-time job. It does not take 8 hours a day. It just takes a few hours a day. And that is a big investment, but what is a better investment than your child? They will likely get a better education. And they will be more wholesome, and they'll have values taught. But on that note, I want to bring in to the conversation Linda Shrewsbury. I met her this week, and we met through a mutual friend that I think very highly of. She's amazing. And she homeschooled for 11 years, I think she said. She can correct me if I'm wrong. But she actually wrote her own curriculum on cursive. And I know we talked about cursive the last few episodes and how important it is that kids know cursive and are able to write cursive. Linda, welcome to the show. Is she back there? There she is. Hey, Linda.
Hi. Great. Well, it's been so interesting to hear you all talking about homeschooling. The kids I homeschooled are 47, 44, and 42, and they are also homeschooling, which is the real validation in the end that, that they found this so valuable that they're doing it for my 11 grandchildren. And I just want to say that, when I was homeschooling back in the 80s, I actually took my son down to public school, and they said, oh, he's going to have to go to remedial first grade and be on Ritalin. And so I came home to tell my husband that, and he said, oh, no, we will homeschool. That was the first time I heard about homeschooling, and, 11 years later. it was definitely the thing. And I think of, all the days when I thought, get on the bus and go to school, but, stuck with it. And am I ever glad I did? The results are just amazing, as you all can say, because one of you, I can't remember your names, the result of homeschooling. And yes, it's very different. It's not, for every family, it's different. For me, it was not. I tried to do like public school because that's what I knew, going to public school of, the 50s and 60s. But it's different, and it's just unique for each family. You do it the way your kids need. We've got in our family 2 lawyers and a school principal, so I think, it worked out okay. I want to say, as far as my cursive curriculum, it had nothing to do with my homeschooling other than being informed by the fact that I had homeschooled. I was a volunteer reading tutor in a literacy program here in Tulsa. And I got a young 23-year-old who hadn't really learned to read or write, although he did graduate from high school. It was kind of amazing. But one day he told me he wanted to learn cursive so he could sign his name. And I thought, well, how do you teach a 23-year-old, not letter by letter, day by day for months, the way you would, a grade school student? And I had no idea that cursive had been taken out of the school. So at that point, my kids were all graduated and launched in life. But here was Josh, and I had a 5-word prayer. Lord, help me, help Josh. And I feel like cursive logic was the answer to that. So I looked at the letters for a while, saw this pattern, and I thought, wow, if I show this pattern to Josh, I wonder what will happen. When I did, he was able to form the lowercase alphabet in 45 minutes. I showed him his initials, and he signed his name. We were both stunned. And so I thought, wow, I want it to work, but I had no idea, he would walk out with a signature. When this happened a few more times with some other students, I thought, wow, we're onto something here, something intuitive about the way we're presenting this. And the key is to do a shape-based approach to learning the alphabet. That in itself is not new. Things have been based on shape, but the innovation of cursive logic is to do letter strings. So you take all the letters that are shaped the same way, they have a basic approach stroke, and you put them together and have 4 letter strings. So students, instead of 26 lessons, you're down to 4 lessons, and they're very intuitive. Students kind of get the picture and they go with it. So
you taught him cursive in 45 minutes.
In 45 minutes, he formed the entire lowercase alphabet. Okay.
That's impressive.
Now you can't, of course, it takes practice, and
Sure.
he did practice, and he became a very beautiful cursive writer. And about 2 years later, I said, Josh, we got to take this to the next level. I got him a journal, and he started copying the book of John into that journal. And so it was just a beautiful experience, just wonderful. And I just think that was one of those situations where, my supposed volunteer activity was way more of a blessing to me than, So in any case, we made the workbook. We thought this is a method that works. We launched it. And this is something that I think is going to be significant to your audience. So when I had been doing research on handwriting and that kind of thing, and I came across a neuroscientist at Texas A&M by the name of Dr. William Clem, who'd been doing research and writing about handwriting and brain development and so forth. We sent him our workbook. We thought, let's send our workbook to Dr. Clem and see if he'll review it. And he did. And 4 days later, he wrote a blog post in Psychology Today, and the title of it was A New Intelligent Way to Teach Cursive Handwriting. We loved it so much, it became our tagline. We asked him, can we use this for a tagline? And it's on every workbook that we print. And anyway, Dr. Clem looked at that and he said, yeah, this is the kind of the old-fashioned approach with an innovation of these letter strings that really makes it an intelligent new way to teach cursive handwriting.
So One of the things that I loved about and I got to sit and have lunch with you, and I got to look at your textbooks. And so you are having the kids, and several of them, um, copy poems, copy songs that used to be considered, well, they were a part of the historical documents every child would see when America was more wholesome. And so
Mhm.
I quite enjoyed that, how you are highlighting literature that the kids should see and have them repeating that and copying it down.
Right. So I thought, why should the copy work be throwaway stuff? Just kind of
Right.
stuff that's not inspiring. Why not use things that are going to be kids that are going to be teaching things to students? Like, so the third grade practice workbook. We have one workbook that teaches the method, and that is for any grade. We actually sell that workbook in pen stores to pen collectors, people who spent thousands of dollars on these fancy fountain pens. They were initially really our first audience, because when we did the Kickstarter to raise money for the first printing, we found this niche of people who go to pen shows monthly, spend thousands of dollars on fountain pens. And they, of course, are people who value handwriting. So they really liked the idea of our workbook, supported it. We were able to raise $33,000 in that Kickstarter to print the first workbooks.
So that's cursivelogic.com for anyone who wants to check it out. You had mentioned that there was a cognitive development that tied into cursive writing. Can you tell me a little bit about that?
Yes, and I want to talk about that because when I first started out, it was, oh, here's an interesting way to teach cursive. But as I've grown, what I've realized is that the brain research is currently going on. I'm talking about studies from 2024. I haven't seen any 2025 studies yet, linking handwriting to cognitive development. And when I initially started, I remember reading a very important article called The Haptics of Literacy. Haptics are the science of touch, but it was how the touch of making letters actually is enhancing, as part of literacy. Okay, but what the new studies are showing is that the what's going on in the brain by coordinating the visual and the motor activity of handwriting is actually enhancing brain development. So you take this away, and you're taking away a component of what's developing our students' brains, what's helping this left and right part to synchronize, which is going to lead to greater understanding, memory. And memory, of course, is an important component of understanding. You have to remember things to, link them and put them together. And so handwriting is activating broader brain networks than typing, and definitely enhancing memory, learning, and cognitive development. And this is a thing I think that has to get out to parents and teachers and educators, is that handwriting, and especially connected handwriting, is not a fancy frill. It is an essential foundational element of education. And honestly, I think that it's the lack of handwriting that's impacting reading scores and all the other areas of the education, that it's kind of like the missing link that we really need to get back into people's understanding that writing, and it's interesting that writing actually goes back to, ancient times. One of the commandments that Moses was given was that the king had to write out the law so he would remember it. Okay, so the idea that handwriting and memory and enhancing understanding and comprehension are linked is not even a new idea, but now we can actually see it, with the kind of research techniques that are available.
So that's interesting, because that would definitely take away from the narrative that I feel like Common Core seeks to push, with where they just want to do, they want you, they're training you to be factory workers, employees, just do what you're told and be quiet. It's going to be too hard to figure out on your own, and they do not encourage critical thinking at all. As a matter of fact,
or creativity.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. And so it's very interesting how cursive would come out. So not only if you don't teach cursive, do they get where they're going to limit the critical thinking, cognitive ability, but they also can no longer read the founding documents of our country and many other things. And so cursive is very important that your kids know how to read. And so I wrote a birthday card to one of my daughter's friends who needed her to read it to him because a 16-year-old could not read happy birthday in cursive. And so that's just something that we need to fix in our society. This is a smart kid, and it's just never been taught. And so we need to fix that. And I really hope you guys will check out her website. I think it's great. She was kind enough. She gifted my children with the workbooks. And so Hannah's not quite ready for cursive yet. She will be, and she probably, I plan on starting her in 3rd grade, which will be next year. But Esther I haven't been able to get her away. She's doing it even when we're not doing school. She's just in there writing it. She loves it. And so it's fun for them as well.
Well, I want to just follow up on one thing that I started and then kind of went down a rabbit trail, and that is the speeches and writings in American history workbook. Okay, that's our 5th grade entry point into, if you haven't had cursive instruction before, it actually reviews everything. But the important thing is 18 great Americans and what they wrote and what they said. That's the copy work. So we start out with Patrick Henry and Give Me Liberty or Give Me Death. And the last American is Ronald Reagan. And it's the passage where he talks about Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall. And so it's just, familiarizing students with important documents in American history, the Gettysburg Address, the Declaration of Independence, Washington's farewell speech. Frederick Douglass is actually what we do for the intro, because he never went to school one day in his life. Okay, yes. Frederick Douglass, the great orator and abolitionist, who had been an enslaved person, and he wanted to learn to read and write, and that's what he did by copying the writings of great people before him, of orators and, the Roman senators and just all the great things that have been written in history. So I when I was putting that workbook together, my motivation was inspiration. How do we inspire kids? Kind of like you were talking about biographies. Biographies are going to inspire. They're going to give an example of what others have done and produced. And these copy works, they're 2 or 3 pages, but they give a sampling of what has gone on in American history that students need to know about and be informed about and be inspired by.
It's amazing. So Sarah, I know you're going to go buy the speeches. I was like, oh, she just sold it to Sarah. I already know she'll go on before the day's up.
My kids are super excited about cursive. My oldest just started cursive this year. And the thing I love about cursive is first of all, you write faster with cursive, and writing is thinking. And so if you can write faster, you can get more of your ideas on paper. So there's just a practical, but yeah, they are the same way. They want beautiful handwriting. And I think that's a good goal for kids. And it's such a life skill that's not being passed on. So I'm really excited about your curriculum. I'll definitely check it out.
Oh, thanks. Well, I'm really wanting to get it out there for the 250th anniversary celebration. Yes. I think it's a really good way to introduce students to some civic education, as it's a twofer. They're going to learn cursive and civics. Wow.
I love it. It's a great thing. So what do you think about this? I know, so Kendra was in charge of overseeing curriculum to make sure it met the social studies standards for the Trump of Oklahoma, Ryan Walters. What do you think about something like that? I just want your viewpoints, because I know you've looked at, how many pieces did you read? Was it hundreds, or was it not quite that?
This summer was about 200. The other summer it was over 200, and the first summer was way over, probably closer to 400. And maybe not read line by line, but at least go through them looking for specific things. And yeah, it was somewhat torturous, but I'm a reader, so it was also somewhat fun. But we haven't mentioned kinesthetic learners, and they learn well with being able to touch and feel letters. It's a big piece of that. So I'm sitting here thinking about kinesthetic learners and the rise in dyslexia. And I wonder if there's any correlation. Have you found a correlation, Linda, between?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We trained 145 dyslexia specialists down in the Dallas metro area. Plano picked up cursive logic, not Richardson, Prosper, Plano, Allen, Irving, and they were doing it for dyslexia remediation. Found it very, very effective. Because of, again, the method, that shape-based method just really clicks with kids. Somehow they get that big picture and they understand the alphabet in a very intuitive way. It's not just a random set of 26 letters. There's a pattern that they can understand, discern, and repeat.
Very cool. Go ahead, Kendra.
There's a dyslexia specialist. I think her name's Nancy Harrigan.
Yeah.
I was just trying to. Have you gotten to
Nancy
visit with her about?
Disterlick. Nancy.
Yes,
Yes, she's a
got
friend.
married and moved to Tulsa.
Yes.
But
Yes.
she was in
I met her
Texas.
in Texas. She had us in her school district, and in fact, I'm needing to reach out to her.
She is so fun. Her dyslexia presentations will have you rolling. She is hilarious. She makes it so
She's
fun.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
That's fun. Well, you guys, you can find Linda's curriculum at cursivelogic.com. There will be a link on the Freedom Brigade's website as well. While you're on the Freedom Brigade's website, go to the shop. You guys, when you are supporting our affiliates, you support us, but you also support yourselves and the Freedom Movement. When you buy from the big box stores, you are killing yourself. If it is processed food, you are killing yourself. If it is from even your deodorant is not good for you. If you are getting it from big box stores, you can get stuff that is healthy for you. Go to freedombrigades.com, go to shop. There are many different options from freedom fighters and patriots that are giving the best options, and they're natural options. One of our biggest ones is Dr. Stella Emanuel. You guys remember her. She was on the steps of the Supreme Court speaking out against COVID at the very beginning, and she says you need to keep ivermectin on hand. And so you can go to her website. If you put in, I put the promo on there, I think it's Brigades. But if you do that, she's going to give you a percentage off if you buy it through us. But regardless, you need to take care of yourself. You need to be smart. Stay out of the pharmacia doctors as much as possible. Not all doctors are bad. As a matter of fact, most doctors are good people and most teachers are good people. However, the systems in both are so corrupt, it's the system you can't trust. Most of the people are good and they're just products of the system. And so even the ones that fight back, they pay a price for fighting back. And so pray for your friends that are doctors and teachers and be smart with yourself and your family. Guys, thank you for joining us this week. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.